All right. Well, hello and welcome to Solar Alberta's 2024 Solar Show, our 10th annual. This session is called Solar and Friends Mixer and Networking Event. Please note that we have enabled closed captioning for this session. You can turn the captioning on in the toolbar at the bottom of your Zoom screen. My name is Heather McKenzie and I'm the Executive Director of Solar Alberta. I'd like to take a minute to acknowledge that I'm hosting you today from Amiskwaciwaskahigan, also known as Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, which is located on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Treaty 6 territory is the traditional gathering place and home of many Indigenous peoples, including the Papachaise, the Hayawak or Cree, Saulteaux, Dene, Blackfoot, and Nakota Sioux. Nations whose ancestors have cared for and nurtured these lands since time immemorial. We were delighted to have so many people register for this week and this event, definitely our biggest registration yet. To start, we'd like to thank Enbridge for sponsoring the solar show as a whole and the City of Edmonton Change for Climate for sponsoring this exciting session today. We're very happy and grateful to have them as sponsors. Today we're going to be hearing from 4 mentors, and then at 5 p.m. once the mentor Q&A is complete, I'll be announcing the winner of our 50-50, and then we'll begin our networking breakout rooms. The entire session will wrap up in 2 hours. We're going to be using question Q&A for the Q&A. You're going to raise your hand, and then I'll identify you for the mic. So you'll use the raise hand function because we're in a Zoom meeting rather than a Zoom webinar. I'll review that again later in our session. We are recording our mentor presentations and the Q&A, and we're going to make it available on our YouTube channel following the show. Just want to encourage you all to check out our online trade show this week. We have listed on this slide and in the chat the wonderful organizations who are participating. To view their exhibitor booths, which include a listing of key solar-related services, contact info, and video introductions, please click on the link in the chat. And before we move forward, we're going to do a quick poll to get a sense of who we have joining us today. Please take a minute to answer the question as it pops up on your screen. There we go. And while some folks are doing the poll, I encourage you to take a minute, pop your name, land acknowledgement, any contact information you're comfortable sharing in the chat now as well as throughout the event, so that others can start looking you up on LinkedIn or email you and stay connected. Aha, very interesting. I'm watching the results of the poll come in. Okay, so we've got a lot of professionals in the house, quite a few students as well, and some solar curious folks. So you folks are here to get your networking groove on, and I appreciate that. Welcome. Now just going to share a little bit about who we are as well. Solar Alberta is in our 33rd year of operation. We're a nonprofit society that is dedicated to accelerating Alberta's transition to a just and sustainable energy future. We do so by advocating, educating, and serving as an industry and community hub for solar energy. Our membership is made up of over 760 individuals and 160 businesses. We also have approximately 21,000 followers on social media and through our newsletter. We provide a number of services, including managing a solar directory through our website. It's likely that a number of our business members are here today who are in that directory. You can see a screenshot of the directory here on this slide and a link to it in the chat. In addition to our website services, we run a number of educational programs as well as in-person and online networking events like this one. Please note that recordings of all our previously recorded solar show sessions and seminars can also be found on our YouTube channel. And this spring, we're once again running a number of online courses for industry professionals or those transitioning into the sector. Our courses are online Tuesday and Thursday evenings on 3 to 5 nights over 2 to 3 weeks. First up is the economics of grid-tied solar PV, great for anyone contemplating solar sales. You can register for all of our courses at the link provided in the chat. We are also offering a new Buy 3 Get Codes free bundle. This bundle includes our 4 technical courses. The link to purchase the bundle is also available in the chat. The recordings of these courses are available for sale alongside our paid workshops in the solar training video section of our website. With respect to our advocacy work, we have a number of different campaigns running, which include template letters that you can use to contact decision makers. Please send letters requesting the Canada Greener Homes grant be refinanced, requesting an end to the provincial moratorium on renewable power plants, and requesting a number of supports for solar and energy efficiency upgrades to homes and businesses in Alberta. We also have free Rise Up for Renewables lawn signs available for pickup in 11 municipalities around the province. Please click on the link in the chat to access all our templates and to make a sign order today. Now that you know a little about us, just want to take this opportunity to encourage you to join as a member. Individual membership is only $35, and this week only, just till the end of today, you can get a membership, individual or student, at a 20% discount. The link to become a member is also being placed in the chat. On April 24th, we'll be hosting our annual general meeting. I want to invite you all to sign up as members, attend, and elect your new board. There are several vacancies to fill on the board this year. If you are interested in applying, you're welcome to do so through our website until February 29th. With your help, we are recognizing longtime dedicated contributors to solar in Alberta by gifting them a free lifetime Solar Alberta membership. Please consider becoming a member and nominating the solar champion in your life for this award. We'll be accepting nominations until April 3rd, and the award recipients will be announced at our AGM. Finally, we're pleased to announce the Solar Alberta Diversity Scholarship. This scholarship is intended for equity-deserving individuals. Through the scholarship, we're seeking to promote inclusivity, amplify historically marginalized voices, and encourage diverse participation in the solar and solar-related sectors. We'll be awarding $2,000 to one equity-deserving individual registered in an Alberta training program that aligns with our mission. We're going to be accepting applications until April 30th. Eligibility details and the scholarship application are available by clicking on the link in the chat. Very thankful to Enbridge for sponsoring this scholarship. And now I'm going to turn the mic over to you, Lisa. I'm going to turn my screen share off. So welcome. Join me in welcoming Lisa Dockman. She's with the City of Edmonton, our sponsor for the day. She's going to share a little bit with us about the City of Edmonton, and then she's just going to do a brief introduction to our mentors before they introduce themselves more fully. Welcome, Lisa. I'll turn my mic off and my
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Like Heather said, I'm Lisa Dockman, and I'm an Energy Transition Program Manager at the City of Edmonton. So today's session is sponsored by the City of Edmonton's Change for Climate, a family of programs that supports citizen-led initiatives that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and build capacity and positive social norms around taking action on climate change. So our team delivers community programs to help Edmontonians achieve emissions reductions in their housing and mobility choices and prepare for a changing climate. So what a wonderful week it has been. Having attended multiple sessions, I am grateful for the leadership that Solar Alberta provides throughout the year and at the Solar Show specifically. So on behalf of the City of Edmonton, I would like to thank everyone for your passion for renewable energy, your dedication to climate action, and it has never been more important. And finally, I would like to introduce today's mentors. So Jody Conyell is a program coordinator at the Biosphere Institute of Bow Valley. Lisa Vaji is a building performance engineer at Stantec. Monique Saboran is a senior engineer at Fortis Alberta. And Paul de Groot is a general manager at Kubi Energy. So welcome everyone one last time, and thank you for coming today. And I'll pass the virtual mic over to Heather to get this exciting session started.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate you being here with us today. It's now time for us to hear from our mentors. So each mentor will introduce themselves, share their journey in the sector, and provide you with a little advice as we've asked them to. And then after each has finished speaking, I'll open the floor to questions. As I mentioned before, if you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand. You can do that down in the reactions button there. It says raise hand. Or you could just camera on and literally raise your hand and I'll try to see you. But Zoom will actually move you to the top of my screen if you use the reaction button. So that would be my preferred method. If you can't do that, you can also alternatively type your question in the chat, and our public outreach lead, Mackenzie, will then raise her hand and I will give her the mic to read your questions. So you have a couple options there to ask questions of our mentors. All righty. So first up today, I think it was going to be you, Jody, if I'm not mistaken. So I'll pass the mic to you and thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. So as you know, my name is Jody Cornwall, and I think I'm here today due to my participation as a founding board member for the Bow Valley Green Energy Cooperative. Bow Valley Green Energy is a volunteer-run social enterprise that is working to make renewable energy affordable and accessible in the Bow Valley, but also beyond. We do this by facilitating the installation of community-owned renewable energy systems, which in essence are financed, owned, and managed by our members and investors. As the first community-owned organization in Alberta to install solar panels, we're also working hard to guide other organizations in the replication of our success. Now, I'm likely the anomaly in the presenters here today because my background is in marine biology. And I've spent a significant chunk of my career working in the fields of ecology and habitat protection. I grew up in England, if you can't tell by my accent. But when I emigrated to Canada, my kind of environmental uh, experience wasn't so relevant. We have bats and dormice in England, not grizzly bears and cougars. So instead of completely retraining, I went looking for opportunities in the environment sector once I got my residency here. And luckily enough, I stumbled across a job at a local environmental organization called the Biosphere Institute of the Bow Valley, which is where I currently work as a program coordinator. And I focus all of my work on community engagement and designing and implementing community focused initiatives to help people reduce their carbon footprints. And that comes from a long term sort of interest in protecting the environment and watching climate change impact our planet and being really concerned about what was happening. So while I was working in this particular position, I actually attended the Energy Efficiency Alberta Community Generation Roadshow, which swept into Canmore in late 2018, and learned about community generation as a concept and what funding was available to undertake a feasibility study into the concept of community generation. So I went back to my boss and I was like, hey, this sounds like a really interesting idea. Should we pursue it? So we applied for the funding. We received $65,000 as an organization to undertake a feasibility study into community generation. And what we really wanted to understand was how can community generation work in a place like Canmore, where we don't have a lot of available space. We don't have fields that we can just put solar panels on. You know, our options lie on the built environment. So we focused on trying to get solar panels on every single rooftop. So in 2019, I led a feasibility study, and the results of this feasibility study into community generation, alongside the Biosphere Institute's community outreach and engagement, facilitated the creation of Bow Valley Green Energy Cooperative. And since then, I've been working to take this idea from kind of concept and bring it all the way through to reality. And I've been with the organization every step of the way. And we've done an awful lot of learning about renewable energy and solar and opportunities in that space along the way. So I would like to say that if you want to be like me, the best piece of advice that I can give you is don't let somebody tell you that you can't do something. Because early on in the process of creating the Bow Valley Green Energy Cooperative, I had a lot of learning to do, as I mentioned. But I was told by several industry people that what I wanted to do was not feasible. And I tell you what, that really lit a fire underneath me. And, you know, I worked really hard to support this amazing group at Bow Valley, do everything they possibly could to prove this person wrong, these people wrong. And you can do anything that you put your mind to as long as you have the right people to support you along that journey. So find your tribe. Is my kind of advice to you today. That's it for me.
Thanks, Jody. That's wonderful. I know I've been very inspired ever since I joined the solar sector, just trying to follow all of the activity you've been doing. So just a reminder for everybody, if you have questions for Jody, you can just use the raise hand function under reactions in your toolbar, or you can literally put your hand up, or you can write your thoughts and your questions in the chat. I see a lot of Jody is awesome in the chat. This is true. And so you're welcome to do that, and Mackenzie can then ask your question. I guess one question I had for you, Jody, I know one of your goals was to use up a roof in the Bow Valley, and I saw that your group has recently expanded to do projects in Calgary. So does that mean you succeeded in your initial goal already?
Um, we haven't quite got solar on every rooftop in Canmore yet. Just two in Canmore, one in Exshaw, and now one in Calgary. But we basically work with uh, the best fit for our organization at any one time, and we consider the Bow Valley to be anywhere within the Bow River watershed.
Hmm,
We're all
that's
neighboring.
helpful. Yeah, that's helpful. And I guess I have one other question for you. Well, just given what I know about that area, I've heard it's a really great area for geothermal. So I was wondering why you were drawn to sort of solar instead of geothermal, or if you're exploring both. How does that work for you, considering the potential there for the other technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. We started with solar, I'll put it that way, because solar is a technology that people understand. It's relatively affordable. The economics can be easily explained. And we built a model based on that. We are investigating other opportunities for renewable energy right now. I can draw a specific reference to wind as an opportunity that we're looking at right now. Geothermal or shallow exchange is a little bit more complicated. You need the really specific locations. So even though Camar is great for shallow geothermal, it also has to be in a specific place. It works better in a new build rather than a retrofit from an affordability perspective. So there's kind of like multiple reasons why we haven't chased that dream, but there's definitely people on our board who I can disclose are actually installing it in their own new builds right now. So we have the expertise on our board if an opportunity came along that we could potentially jump on. We certainly wouldn't say no.
Great. Well, that's good to understand. Thank you. I know I'm in Edmonton, so things are a little different here. Although I do have a ground source heat pump, which is kind of neat and unique in this area. That's for sure. Well, thank you, Jody. Really appreciate you taking us through some of your story. And I know you probably have a much longer story. And sorry, we have to cut everyone short, but I appreciate you sharing. Lisa Veggie is going to share next. And thank you for joining us today, Lisa. If you could take the mic away from me and share your story, we'd love to hear it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisa Vaggie, and I'm currently working at Stantec as a building performance engineer. My stories, I guess I'll start with I graduated from the U of A twice with a bachelor's and a master's in chemical engineering. I worked in the oil and gas industry for around 10 years, and mostly in small detailed engineering projects. Between 2015 and 2020, I was laid off 5 times. And through that time and since then, I have worked for almost every single major oil and gas company in Alberta. At the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, I was laid off again, and I decided to take that opportunity to make a career change. I've been wanting to do that since 2016, and through a bunch of amazing things like the CERB and other federal grants, I was able to finally make that jump And I was also helped along by a free 1-year program at Northwest College called Career Moves. Um, that is a program to help mid-career professionals transition to a new career. So I did that program, and finishing that program, I was given another grant, which I then put towards my tuition at the NATE Alternative Energy Program. So I started that program in 2021, and I learned a lot about green energy and solar and a whole bunch of new skills. And I was able to fund all of my studies through federal grant programs specifically aimed at mid-career professionals like me. A lot of those grants I learned after the fact would not have been available to me in 2016 when I wanted to leave oil and gas. They require that you be out of school at least 10 years before they are applicable. So I graduated from the NATE Alternative Energy Program in May of 2020, and in September of 2023, I started working at Stantec on the carbon impact team, and my job is to help decarbonize buildings by performing energy audits on commercial and multi-unit residential buildings.
Oh, wow, Lisa, thanks for sharing. What a challenging roller coaster you've been on. I hear the politicians talking about the roller coaster here and the resource roller coaster, and can't imagine literally living it myself. For me, that's usually about the budget in the province going up and down, but for you, it's literally about your life. So thank you for joining our sector, and I hope you find some stability here. Just a reminder, if you have questions for Lisa, you can use the raise hand function, or you can literally raise your hand or write your comments, questions in the comment box. I guess you mentioned that you started to think about a shift in 2016. Was it the roller coaster that prompted your shift, or was it something else? Like, what really made you think, okay, I'm going to get into sort of the energy efficiency and renewables space?
Part of it was the roller coaster, but I know that the the green energy is not immune to the roller coaster. I've heard it been coined the solar coaster. So yeah, as much as I hope for stability, I know it's not really in my generation to expect or hope for stability, but at least I can find meaningful work. What 2016 what changed my mind a lot in 2016, along with like losing my job and not yeah, losing my job the first time, and not uh and having being traumatized by that experience. I read the IPCC report in 2016, and that's when I learned that the things I had been led to believe in chemical engineering about the global warming potential of carbon dioxide, I was led to believe that it wasn't a big deal and that we really needed to focus on methane. And that was partly true. Yes, methane is 25 to 40 times worse, like a greater global warming potential than carbon dioxide. But when we hit 400 ppms of CO2, um, which had never been seen before in human history, that's when I really realized that this is a big problem and I want to be part of the solution. But in 2016, there were no green jobs. I went to several information sessions to figure out how do I change careers, and it was really difficult. I was told I'd have to go to Vancouver for 2 weeks, stay in a hotel, take this energy manager course that costs thousands of dollars, and then hope for a job offer afterwards. Now, I have taken that course since then, but because of the pandemic, it was offered online. So that saved me a lot of money. I still had to pay thousands of dollars for the course, just to build my credibility as a green energy engineer. And yeah, so I'm thankful for, although the pandemic was awful in many ways, it has really accelerated and opened doors for me
Mm.
into new spaces.
Yeah, well, I thank you so much for sharing. And your story is one that probably most of my high school friends will resonate with, because a lot of them went into chemical engineering, and maybe didn't have the exact same path as you, but probably some of the same frustrations for sure. And I know that's definitely something they were encouraging in high school. You know, I definitely remember if I went into chemical engineering, I would get a lot of scholarships. And I remember that thinking, gosh, I guess maybe I should do that. Or, um, but then thinking, I don't even know what an engineer is. So that wouldn't
Well,
have been a
my
good
father
choice for
is a
me.
chemical engineer and my brother works in oil and gas, so I knew
Oh,
very well what it was about.
yeah.
And my master's thesis was on the oil sands production and trying to reduce its impact on water consumption. So like, I was always concerned with the environment, but I was misled to believe where my concern really should be placed, and that was in carbon emissions is really important.
Yeah, super important to learn. And I should say, I have since learned what an engineer is, by the way, and am married to one, so don't worry.
My condolences.
Yeah. Oh, so wow. And yes, thank you, Cheryl, for commenting in the chat. Many hoops to jump through. And you know, part of why we're doing this session today and why we do what we do at Solar Alberta is actually so that people like Lisa don't have such a hard time getting through all those hoops. You know, really excited to launch our diversity scholarship, and Lisa was very supportive of reviewing that for us to make sure that we got it right for people like Lisa and others who we know are making that jump in this province, and that it's a really hard thing to do. So thank you for that, Lisa. I think it's time for Monique. So Monique, if you wouldn't mind taking the mic, we'd love to hear your story. And it's nice to have a wide variety of speakers today. So I'll pass the mic to you, and looking forward to it.
So yeah, my name is Monique. I'm at Fortis, Alberta currently. I graduated from University of Calgary engineering, and yeah, like I've been in the utility world. That's what I was going to say since then. And early in my career, I would read about what's happening in the industry, in this industry, but I didn't directly get involved until about 2001. And I remember when the solar started coming on houses, right? That was a big deal, right? Oh, and at that time, wind was being sponsored by the federal government. And because people wanted to build the large wind farms, they came on our distribution system as a test bed. So that was very exciting and busy. So then the solar, as I said, I went away from it for a while. Didn't see it for a while, but then when in 2008 the original microgen regulation came out, I started getting into it again, and that really bumped up in 2016 when the regulation went up to just under 5 megawatts and had the aggregate. And I remember being very confused about the aggregate, but now I understand and explain it to my colleagues all the time. And luckily more and more people are getting it. And then I was brought in as a DG engineer in 2017 because of the influx of so many projects and wanting someone to understand it all in the industry, right? Like with us, the fellow utilities, the consultants, you know, and our own engineering team, right? Like what's needed. So there's been a lot of progress, fortisalberta.com, under the generation section. Lots of transparency, lots of information out there. It's a good read. So yeah, and the magnitude, I mean, this year's update for our service territory is 95 megawatts in microgen. And I don't know the latest numbers, sorry, but remember, Heather, it was huge in 2018 when I spoke with all the other utilities, right? So it's growing, right? So many coming in, just so much happening. So what I really want to stress in this world, and I think it might be why you and Mackenzie brought me back, even though I'm not purely in DERs anymore. I'm standards engineer. So now I just see the ones that need a standards engineer. I'm not in the day-to-day anymore, right? So just like on the load side, now I only see the ones that need, you know, there's something different to explore, right? So the biggest thing is to contact the utility first. And Jody, that reminds me how I met you in 2018 with what she was describing, what I really loved about that session was that you brought in the industry from the solar world, but you also brought in a few utilities, and that was awesome to be able to explain where we were at, where we were going with small scale generation, with microgen and all that. So nice to see you again. And that's the biggest thing. I've had so many consultants over the years learn, and that's what this group is all about, right? Learning so much. And one of the things that I've heard said is, oh, I'm so glad I learned to come to the utility first before speaking to the customer, because then they understand better how to tie into us and don't have to submit, have it explained to them, and then go back to the customer and explain it all. So, well, and it's changed a lot. Like it's 2024, which I still can't believe, but so many of the consultants understand it so much better, and they're explaining it to the customers. It's not us explaining so much, and all of our stuff's on the website, as I said. So, generation@fortisalberta.com if you have any questions. It's not me behind the box anymore, but good team.
Thanks, Monique. It's great to hear from you again. And yeah, it's been really nice having a number of the utilities come and participate in the solar show over the years, because it is kind of one of those things where some people are a little shy to approach y'all. And of course, you're humans like the rest of us, so they probably just need to fire you an email if they're wondering what's going on. In fact, in our session earlier today about small scale generation regulation, it did come up that, before you get doing much, you should probably check that there's distribution capability for your system, because that's the main difference between the small scale reg and the utility scale regs, is that you have to be on the distribution system, not the transmission system. So you got to make sure there's room there.
All of the utilities now have great hosting capacity maps on our websites. So great reminder about that. Thank you. And the hosting capacity map shows the system as it is right now, with the current conductor sizes, with the current queue in the system. And then at fortisalberta.com, we also have a project list under the hosting capacity tab, because you get to see the list of projects that are on what substation, what feeder, because if that substation is starting to fill up, then you are impacting the transmission system as well. And so that brings another magnitude of costs, right, and studies on top of the distribution world.
Yeah, that type of transparency is super important, and hopefully we can continue being transparent like that. We learned at our seminar last week that in Texas they have a build it and they will come model. So they build some transmission lines to areas where they would like to see more solar farm development. Now with our small scale generation regulation, the distributors might need to start adopting that model too. But I know right now those costs are all on the proponent of the project. So no, thank you for sharing.
And all the utilities are speaking with the commission about that, right? Because we do need to start having rates and having the regulated world as it is in the load side. So a lot of our world is building toward having it the same way we have for load, right? Like you said, it's building. And the commission did, that was back in 2019. They did a industry, brought everyone in, and there have been a lot of talks. So it continues.
That's great to hear. Thanks for that. Seems like you've been in this industry probably longer than most people on the call, but I guess it's sort of an adjacent industry. We call you solar adjacent.
and you said Solar Alberta is 33 years, and that's my years in the industry and the utility.
Oh, wow, a lot of good things started happening 33 years ago. Well, that's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing, Monique. Really appreciate it. And again, if you have any questions for Monique, you just raise your hand using the reaction raise hand function, or pop them in the chat for Mackenzie. But yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to share with us today. And I always have a million questions, so you know me, I'll keep peppering you all day if I have the mic. All right, I think we're at 4:35 here, so let's get into Paul's story. And Paul, thank you so much for joining us today. We were very keen to make sure we had at least one installer in the mix, or someone with installation experience, because that is the majority of our membership. So please do take the mic away and tell us a little bit about your story. We're keen to learn from you.
Thank you for the introduction, Heather. And can I just say it's an honor to be speaking amongst this panel. So yeah, I'm Paul DeGroot. I'm the general manager of Kubi Renewable Energy. Kubi Energy is one of the most prominent residential and commercial, sorry, solar power engineering, procurement, and construction firms in Western Canada. We've completed several thousand PV projects and dozens of megawatts installed. We are a Tesla certified installer, and we provide turnkey solar PV systems, battery energy storage systems, electric vehicle infrastructure projects. We hold a permit to practice engineering in Alberta and BC, and we serve all of Western Canada with offices in Edmonton, which is our headquarters, office in Kamloops, Calgary, and we just opened up a brand new office in Lethbridge this year. So I'm a master electrician. I've been in the trade for 14 years. My father was an electrician. He owned a business in Edmonton for the past 30 plus years. He actually just retired recently. I spent the early years of my apprenticeship working in the residential sector with my father. I decided to kind of branch out on my own in about 2013, and I joined the electrical union. I worked in a variety of different mod yards and refineries, predominantly oil and gas related. I found myself not overly satisfied with the type of work that I was doing, and I decided to leave the union in 2017 to pursue a job in the renewable energy sector, which at the time was quite a bold transition because the oil and gas sector was paying electricians quite well, and the renewable energy sector was relatively new. But I decided that I wanted to pursue something that I was passionate about. So I worked for a company called Helios Integrated Energy for a few years. It was a father and son owned company. They lived in Vancouver, and I basically ran the operations here in Alberta, doing everything from sales, permitting, procurement of materials to actual installations of the solar. In that time, I gained a wide variety of knowledge for installation practices, just general practices within the industry. And I was really eager to get a position with Kubi. They were kind of one of the foremost installers at the time. And so in 2019, I was able to get a position with Kubi as a solar installer. And over the years, I've progressed through the company, starting as an installer, like I mentioned, to a foreman, to a project manager, to a senior project manager, and now I am the general manager of our Edmonton location. It's been really rewarding working in this industry. I have a passion for it. The most rewarding part of it is getting to see the client satisfaction and knowing that I'm making a difference in my community and lowering our global carbon footprint. So yeah, that's my story.
Well, that's really interesting, Paul. I appreciate you sharing. And I know that I've chatted with a few electricians who told me the same thing that you just said. They said they would love to make the shift, but they can't take the pay cut heading into the renewable space. What would you say to someone like that? Because I do encounter them occasionally, and how would you encourage someone to follow your path and make that jump?
Yeah, that's a great question, Heather. I'm fortunate that I interview most of the electricians here for our Edmonton office as well, and this is a question that comes up all the time. I'm transparent and honest, and I use my story as an example of you might have to take a sacrifice for a few years, but the pay will come, and the satisfaction working in an industry that you're passionate about and that makes a difference far outweighs what money kind of can pay you.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of Albertans, maybe because they got so used to oil and gas money, didn't really realize that money comes with significant risk too.
Yep.
And sometimes when you're getting paid a lot, it's actually because you might lose your job the next day. And so hopefully, I noticed that a lot of our members are starting to employ more instead of contract. They're starting to employ for longer. So hopefully we can start changing that dynamic and become the sort of stable and reliable employer that folks can't really find on the other side of the energy spectrum. So that might be a niche we can fill over time. we're certainly working towards it with our group health benefits plan and whatnot here. We're trying to really get all our members shifting in that direction. But yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to share today, Paul. For all of our mentors, we're going to open up the question and answer period now for everybody. So again, you can use the reaction button, you can raise your hand, you can physically raise your hand, or you can put some questions in the chat. And I'm actually going to open that opportunity up as well to our mentors. One of the nice things about this format is that you can also pepper each other with questions too. So if you have questions, you want to pick each other's brains on a topic, it doesn't just have to be about your life journey. We have a little bit of time now to learn from each other as well and grow. So yeah, just open the floor for questions for everybody. I know Mackenzie has a long list of fun questions for us today, so she might have to pull out one of those good ones. Oh, I see some comments in the chat here. Yeah, sorry, just checking the chat. Cheryl's got some thoughts there. Mackenzie, do you want to share what Cheryl's contributing in the chat?
So in British Columbia, the companies I have spoken, or Cheryl has spoken to, are more willing to hire a first-year electrician than someone with technical experience in solar. Can you comment how to get a job at Kubi in Kamloops? Any advice?
Sorry, great question. We actually are looking for a variety of different positions in the Kamloops office. It's a growing office, so you can either send me directly an email at paul.d@kubienergy.ca. If you haven't had success applying through Indeed, you can always apply through our website, but I would say if you send me an email directly, I can expedite the process for you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And I know something I have found really interesting and learned just in the last 3 years since I shifted into the sector is, you do have to be willing to become an electrician to work as a solar installer in Alberta. I don't know if that's the case across the country. So I think a lot of people get a little confused when they come here because, they come here, they think they can be a solar installer, and then they learn they have to be willing to become an electrician. Paul, do you mind commenting on that a little bit? And I know you folks work in BC and Alberta. Do they have the same expectation there as well for folks who are literally installing?
Yes, that's a standard that we like to live up to. It's something I think our clients want is to know that the installers are certified electricians. I myself had to go through the apprenticeship program, and we pride ourselves on that apprenticeship program and training these, young men and women to kind of learn in this industry and become the best that they can be. So I think that we want to keep that ideology and continue to have that. I know our Kamloops office, Lethbridge, Calgary, and Edmonton, we'll employ, anybody, but they have to be willing to become indentured as an electrical apprentice.
Yeah, that's a super important component that unfortunately not enough people talk about. The union folks are very well aware of that, so they're good at making sure people have awareness about that. But not all the green NGOs who are training folks are aware of that. So we're trying to educate our partners as well to make sure we're not setting up people with false expectations. Mackenzie, I see you've got a question there.
Yes, Preet is asking if the mentors are happy that they moved into the renewable energy or solar sphere. And did you have doubts at any point about that transition you made?
Second thought. How about you, Jody? Are you happy with the shift, or do you ever wish you were back working on the what was it, the mice and the bats?
Yes, I'd never look back because for me, this is a volunteer position now. I don't get paid to do this. I'm doing this in my spare time, and I'm doing this because I care about it. It's so rewarding to see those electrons flowing. I love every month, like checking the websites to update our Bow Valley Green Energy website with how much energy we've generated and what the carbon offsets are and calculating that and like sharing that with the world. It's just like the one of the highlights of my work month when I do a little bit of maths and put that information out into the world. I'm also a proud owner of my own solar system. So I have a lot of benefits in working with the biosphere to help people make that transition as well. And it's really rewarding, opening up people's eyes to the opportunities in that space. So I just couldn't recommend it enough. Coming home every day and being happy with what you do is awesome.
Or sitting at home every day and being happy with what
Being
you
at
do.
home.
In my case, I get to work from home. How about you, Lisa? I want to comment on that. Any regrets?
No regrets so far. I'm still pretty early in my green energy journey or career, I would say. Yeah, I have a lot of really intense feelings about it. Because there is a lot of supposed opportunity for chemical engineers to get involved in bioenergy, CCS, lots of energy, like green energy things in that aspect. And I was often told before going back to school at NAIT that if I just sit tight and wait, I'll eventually get an opportunity there. And there was some things that happened in my career that showed me that wasn't really going to happen, because it's still an old man's club in the oil and gas industry, and it's a buddy system. And I'm not saying that the green energy industry is immune to that. I think our entire job market has issues with, it's not a meritocracy, and it's everywhere. It's not just oil and gas. It's who you know, it's not what you know, and that's unfortunate, and I don't like it. But I'm one person and I can't change that alone. Um and yeah, I just feel incredibly lucky that I met my boss at a social event, and he was looking for people to do exactly what I wanted to do, which was energy audits, because I felt like from the different careers that I was introduced to at NAIT, or potential careers out of alternative energy, because when I started the program, I learned that Stantec hadn't hired any graduates from that program. But when I met my boss, who is also a graduate of the program, then I learned that, oh yeah, like shortly after I started at NAIT, Stantec started hiring alternative energy graduates. So that really like changed things around. And yeah, so thank goodness I like met him, and he was looking for people. And one of the reasons why I felt that energy auditing was what I wanted to do is because it involves like pulling together like a diverse knowledge set to help decarbonize like buildings and processes. So like I could be working on processes, but it's just the team I'm on is working on buildings. And I feel like decarbonizing buildings is a much more accessible industry. Decarbonizing process engineering is very closed off. It's all like blocked off with patents and trade secrets and things like that. So I feel like it's not very accessible. Whereas buildings, I really felt like going through the NAIT Alternative Energy program, there were so many people I met that were in like green energy related to buildings decarbonization. And they're just like so excited to teach people about how buildings work, how we can decarbonize them, what we can do better. And I just felt like this is a much more welcoming industry. So
Well,
no regrets in that sense.
I'm glad you've had that experience. I have to admit, I've been a little surprised, because I come from a community development background. So we very much share, because it's all about poverty reduction and we all have to share. And I was actually a little surprised. Last year we put out a call for some teachers to teach about a subject. And we got almost no applicants. And the ones we got said, oh, sorry, I'm not allowed actually, because these are all trade secrets. So this was just around like operations and maintenance on commercial roofs. So luckily, Eric, our teacher from BC, was willing to do it, because I guess our members are not, in direct competition with him because he's in BC. But I was just shocked how the Albertans didn't want to share their operations and maintenance knowledge with each other.
I guess the openness is in deep energy retrofits. It seems to be like a newer niche, and I think that they're desperate for people to be learning how to do these. And I think the best way to decarbonize a building is to start with one that's already there, because building new buildings results in more emissions.
That's a good point. Yeah, and I suppose the deep energy retrofits are where solar was probably 20 years ago. And at that time, I do think there were more people sharing and willing to share. And I think that's part of why our teacher, Eric, is so willing to share because he was part of that original culture. And it wasn't so dog eat dog, where now the solar sector is very dog eat dog. So it's getting a little bit more aggressive and less sharing. So interesting to hear, and I know some of our members are green builders, and we have had some of them participate in the past, and they've been very open. It was actually much easier when I first started planning the solar shows, way easier to get someone to come and talk about and teach about energy efficiency than to get anyone to come and teach about solar. But I was desperate. I said, no, we need solar professional development. And it's just been really challenging despite having a majority of members who are solar. So it's so fascinating to hear that, Lisa. Thanks for sharing. Mackenzie, question from you?
Yes, Lisa from the city of Edmonton is asking, what are your thoughts on how to get more gender and racial diversity employed in the renewable energy industries?
Yeah, well, that's a very good question. And I actually, Paul, I think I've seen Kubi recently was doing something cool whereby they actually put women in their photos when they were advertising for hiring. And actually, that was a first. Hadn't seen that from many of our members before. So that was neat. And is that part of your effort to diversify the workforce? What are some of the steps you folks are taking there?
Yeah, so we work with a program called Women Building Futures to bring in female candidates. The construction industry in general, I think, has been kind of more male dominated, and we're pretty proud that we have females working for us. Actually, Mary Jane, she'd probably be embarrassed if I was saying her name, but she's one of our strongest installers. We also try to showcase in our social media our already diverse company. We're actually also working with a temporary foreign worker program right now where we're bringing in 20 candidates from Mexico that are actually trained in solar install in Mexico, and they're going to work with us for this season, and hopefully we can get them permanent residency here. So that's just kind of some of the steps that we're taking to bring in a little bit more diverse intake.
Interesting. Yeah, thanks for sharing. And Monique, you've been watching the solar sector for the longest, probably. Have you seen any folks who are having some success in this regard and managing to diversify, their staff contingent and all that jazz?
Well, like I said, I'm not involved with the customers anymore, but I'm trying to think of when I was. I think there has been more diversity, like just in society overall in the last 5-10 years. It's been a huge difference, right? So that's why I'm glad the focus is also on equity and inclusion, because just hitting diversity doesn't mean check mark, because they need to be included and treated equitably. Otherwise, we don't benefit from their experiences and their thinking, right? And like I said, in the generation at fortisalberta.com and the microgen at fortisalberta.com, larger group than when I was there, and quite diverse. So really nice to see out in the industry and internally. So hopefully that, like I said, that shift can continue. I've been in Canada 40 years now, and it's a little odd for me when I came here to see the lack of diversity. So I like that it's finally happening, but equity and inclusion need to also happen now to keep them and benefit from that diversity.
Yeah, it was interesting. Last year we hosted our first ever Solar Women's Lunch, and the number of ladies who were attending who were all alone was actually disturbing. Like, I was so glad they were there, but they were like, I am in this company and I am alone. And then they would say, and I am in this company and I am alone. And it just went around and I was like, oh my gosh.
And I'm sad to hear that, because I was, when I graduated, the first, and then I moved companies the first, right? So
yeah,
yeah, it's still happening. I mean, I guess I celebrate that there's so many firsts, but like you said, there's no where for them to go internally. But I'm glad they have groups like this, and more groups like that are happening, right?
Yeah, and I will say we did get pushback for holding our first ever women and non-binary only event, but we're going to do it again this year because they were all so alone. And so I said, you know what, we're gonna go ahead even with the the trolling, because obviously there's a need there if people are still not
I love
finding.
it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Heather, I've said for my 33-year career, I mentor everyone. I mentor the men, but I mentor the women a little extra because of that, right? Because they're
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah, they are often. And so, yeah, it's important to recognize that. Yes, speaking of alone, poor Mackenzie up in Fort McMurray, where recently they were having a chat in Fort McMurray and trying to decide if there's any solar installers who actually do residential up there. And I looked on our solar installer map with Mackenzie, and we discovered Kubi was actually one of our only members operating up there. So, so anyways, but hopefully they won't be alone much longer in Fort McMurray. We'll see if we can't get more energy and enthusiasm for solar uptake there. Mackenzie?
And that's ATCO's territory, and they're seeing more and more all the time. So never know, right?
Well, I definitely know there's large solar farms up there. It was more the residential and commercial that people are feeling a little left out right now.
You're right. That's what I'm hearing from ATCO, right? Like large, but yeah, hopefully
Mhm.
that.
Well, Fort
Yeah.
McMurray, they go big or go home.
There's lots of commercial installs here, but slowly we're gonna hopefully get some residential installs. There is another question in the chat though. Sandra has said, I have a global business development and sales background in science and technical based industries. Recently, they completed the Clean Energy Shuttle through higher landing to facilitate a career transition into the clean or green energy industry. Apart from programs offered through Solar Alberta, what other suggestions do you have for Sandra to accelerate their entry into the solar energy industry?
Interesting question. Well, solar energy industry. So, Paul, I think I'm going to point that one to you first. Suggestions for programs other than ours?
Yeah, I mean, like our company hires a variety of different backgrounds and educations, and like the industry in general, I think, is growing very quickly. And so I can really only speak for what Kubi is looking for, but we are always looking for talent of, all ages and all backgrounds. So for us personally, like take a look at our website, take a look at our different job postings online, and see what most aligns with kind of your educational background. I believe there was also another company, Iron and Earth, that I spoke at another conference a little while ago, that they had a program that helped different kind of industry professionals help transition into the green energy sector. So Iron and Earth, I think, would be kind of another good resource to kind of help in that regard.
Yeah, they are a partner of ours, Paul, and you're right. I think they do have a careers portal
Hmm.
that very much helps direct folks. And I know on the sales and marketing side of things, it's really interesting to see how a lot of folks they say, well, I don't want to do solar installs, so I don't go into solar. But it's like, oh, actually, did you know there are 20 other different jobs associated with solar? And I've noticed that too, watching Kubi's job postings. A lot of them are not necessarily literal installations, right? It's a wide variety of positions. Mackenzie, do you want to maybe mention our job postings as well? And I feel like those are really helpful because we have Kubis there, but others, and people can get a sense of what types of criteria they need to meet.
Yeah, so we push out a weekly solar jobs roundup on our website and social media platforms every Wednesday. And all of our members, are welcome to share their job applications through there. And so yeah, that's a really great resource if you're looking to see what you might need for the future to get a career, or it's also good if you're looking to enter the energy sector, or the solar energy sector, I should say now.
Yeah, hopefully those will help. Judy, do you have something to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to opportunities in volunteering. Bow Valley Green Energy isn't the only renewable energy cooperative out there. There's also Spice in Edmonton, Sabre in Lethbridge. There's a new group forming up in Athabasca. So if you're interested in getting some experience that would be really relevant to put on your CV, I'd suggest reaching out to one of these groups and saying, hey, these are my skills. I'd like to support your organization. How can I do that? Because I tell you what, our workload is mountainous compared to the amount of help that we actually have. So we would very much love to welcome you into our fold with your skills.
Yeah, you made me think I should plug the Solar Alberta board too. Definitely apply to our board because that's a great way to also beef up your resume. We need a different saying in the solar sector. I don't know what an equivalent saying would be. There's there's something beefy about Alberta, but anyways, let's see, Monique, you have a thought to add there?
Yeah, I just wanted to, and maybe Lisa could add more to it because she actually went through the program. But ever since I heard of the NATE, renewable program, and I believe SATE has something similar. And even if a 2-year program isn't in the books, I don't know if you can take like a few courses just to get some background experience like that. So I love volunteering at NATE and SATE, and they have so many great programs.
Mm-hmm. Mackenzie?
I just wanted to add to Heather's pitch to join our board of directors that we are also always recruiting general volunteers to help with a number of tasks. And so if you're looking for that volunteer opportunity, I would recommend volunteering with Solar Alberta. That's actually how I started with the organization.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Lisa?
Yeah, I just want to repeat what Mackenzie said, like volunteer with Solar Alberta. I'm so glad that I joined as a volunteer. I've been able to meet so many great people. Yeah, the Alternative Energy Technology program does not allow you to take 1 or 2 courses here and there. They don't offer night courses. But things are expanding rapidly. I can't think of any resources right now, but I constantly see new like evening courses online popping up on my news feed. It's happening a lot. And I would definitely plug Solar Alberta's courses offering. That is a really great place to start if you're not able to take full-time studies.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, like, in my search to decide to go back to school, I learned that Alberta is the only province in Canada that does not let you collect EI while going back to school full-time, unless it is a 1 year or less program and you have sponsorship from an employer who will agree to hire you after you're done the 1 year. So that rules out all of the 2-year programs that are on offer. So that was a really frustrating experience. But other provinces in Canada will let you collect, I think, something like up to 9 months of EI if you're a mature professional going back to full-time school. So that's really frustrating.
Weird.
Thanks for the Alberta advantage, right?
That is so weird because I thought EI was a federal program, so I can't understand.
It is, but they are limited by the province's decision of how to administer it in that aspect.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow, that's
really
good to know.
frustrating. But
You know,
thankfully, there are lots of federal grants still available, like the ones that helped me go back to school. But I think all of them required that you be at least 10 years out of your 10 years graduated from your first degree,
yeah.
something like that.
The course we have that's most relevant for solar sales and marketing would be our economics of grid-tied solar PV. That starts February 13th and it will run for 4 evenings and it's all online. And so that one is the most relevant for sales and marketing. It kind of helps you figure out how to use the solar cost calculator, and which is a publicly available calculator, which is one cool thing about Alberta, actually. We have a publicly available cost calculator, very neat. Our teacher designed it, actually, Rob Barron, and he updates it regularly. I have to do the 50-50 draw, so I'm going to do that because it's after 5 o'clock. And then if there are any more questions before we go into networking, I think we can do that. So everybody, let's see here. We need a drum roll, please, which nobody will be able to hear, but as I click on this button here, the winner of our 50-50 is Ed Thumath, ticket number 1046. So we will have to share that on our socials as well because I don't see Ed here today. But yay for Ed. And I'd also like to remind everyone that there's still opportunity to donate to Solar Alberta. We have donating a crowdfunding link in the chat, and the government of Alberta is actually matching all of those donations. So yeah, there's the winner. That was our 150-50 we ran this year. We're trying not to spam people with too many 50-50s, so one chance only.